Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to thank you for joining us for this afternoon's burst session. My name is Elizabeth Manuel, and I'm the Senior Director of Student Services at both the West Virginia Higher Education Policy Commission and for the Community and Technical College System. Before we get started, please feel free to jot down any questions that you may have throughout the presentation in the session chat box just to the right of the screen. At the end of the speaker's presentation, we will address any questions that come in. With that, I have the distinct pleasure of introducing this afternoon's burst session titled Turning Data into Action. And our speaker for this session serves as the Senior Director of the Division of Policy and Planning for the West Virginia Higher Education Policy Commission to support the Commission's efforts to develop, implement, and measure strategies and policies to improve college access, ensure student success, and promote positive economic impacts within our communities. He holds a bachelor's degree in chemistry from the University of Charleston, a master's degree in information systems, and a doctorate in leadership studies with an emphasis in higher education administration, both from Marshall University. And this is something I did not realize until I was preparing for the session. He also holds a private pilot certificate. So here to discuss his take on turning data into action, Dr. Chris Treadway.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and hello, everybody. This is kind of an odd format, and then I don't get the chance to see you all this late in the evening. I will say, Elizabeth, I wore my pilot colors today, so I dressed like an airline pilot, I think, a bit today. But it's nice to at least see the names of some folks that I recognize here on the session, and the names of a few folks that I've not met before. It would be interesting, and Andrew's asking if there are free flights available. That depends. If you're brave enough to fly with me, I suppose we could arrange that, Andrew. But from what I understand, from what Elizabeth talked about, these burst sessions are supposed to be a little less formal than the other sessions you've been through today. She told me that needed to be kind of fun and exciting, and I thought, well, thank you for putting the fun and exciting data presentation at the end of the day when everybody's nearly asleep. But I'll try to make it as interesting as possible for you. And to get us started, it might be helpful because we are such a small group. If in the chat, the session chat, if you would just put your name and what organization you represent. I'm kind of curious. I saw a few names I recognized from higher education, but I'm wondering who the general audience is here that I'm talking to this afternoon. So if you don't mind, if you have a second, just kind of, again, jot that down in the chat. Yeah, I see Dr. Baker from out west. Nice to see you. And as those folks are typing those responses in, I'll just kind of move along and talk a bit about what I wanted to cover this evening, and that was how we take the data we collect here at the central office and try to do a good job or a better job operationalizing it or making it useful to you folks in the field. For a number of years, we here at the central office have produced a variety of reports like the Higher Education Report Card and others. And the report card is really a document that's intended for a specific audience, mostly legislators and folks at our campuses who are sort of in the leadership and in decision-making positions. But it was a very niche audience. So what we've been trying to do over the last few years is to take a look at other people out there in the field who interact more directly with students and ask ourselves how we can take data and make it more useful and help you tell the story that you need to tell to really make a difference and encourage more students to pursue a post-secondary education. So what I'll do this afternoon is share with you a few highlights of some data that are available to you on the Commission's website, and I'll also give you a sneak peek of a new data tool that'll be coming your way here in just the next few weeks. In fact, we're finishing up our last round of edits on the draft right now. But we're excited about this new document we'll be sending out and making available to the schools and the colleges. But it's all about how we use data to tell a story, and then the question is, who are we telling the story to? Who's our audience? So oftentimes if you're at the college level, for example, you're speaking to board members or to members of the community who need to learn more about your institution. And I'll show you a couple of documents and dashboards here in a minute that help you tell that story to community members and others. At the K-12 level, you may be talking directly to students or to other members of the community who are interested in helping students figure out ways to navigate the college going process. It may just be an interested community member who wants to help sponsor a FAFSA completion event. or a community group that's interested in helping more students complete a FAFSA or complete college applications and those sorts of things. So we have data tools that we've developed to help with all of that. The other piece of this conversation, and again, it's kind of unfortunate that in the online platform we can't be together in person to have an actual dialogue about this, but I would invite you to please drop comments in the chat, or to please email me if you have any ideas. But we're always looking for new ideas for new data tools that will be useful to you. We oftentimes just take our best guess at what we think will be helpful to you, and we put it out there. But we welcome feedback, because we want all of these tools we produce to give you kind of the biggest bang for your buck, right? We want you to really be able to use these tools to tell your story and to help students. So that's what this is all about. So please do consider at any time, not just after this presentation, but at any time in the future, if you have ideas for data you'd like to see, reach out to us, and we can either direct you to it if it already exists, or consider adding it to one of our dashboards or other documents as we move along. So what I'm going to do here very quickly is switch my screens around. I'm going to share the Commission's website to start with, and this is going to be your go-to resource for most higher ed data that you'll be interested in. And I'll just so you'll have it, it's just wvhepc.edu, but I'll drop that in the chat for you so you'll have that link there. When you visit the Commission's website, up on the top right-hand corner of the screen, you'll see a link to the Data and Publication Center. This is your one-stop shop for all things data. We unveiled this a few years ago. It's our new higher education data portal called Explorer. And I'm going to spend some time here in just a minute talking about Explorer, but there's a lot you can learn in Explorer about your individual county, about some things going on in your high schools, high school students' perceptions about the college going process, enrollment at your public colleges and universities, financial aid data, and others that I'll kind of mention here in just a minute. And those are all presented through interactive dashboards that allow you to sort and filter and really kind of interact with the data more so than you can in a static report. But as you scroll down the page, you'll see a few others that may be of interest to you. The first one being the Higher Education Almanac. This is a document that we started producing 2 years ago that replaces what used to be our higher education report card. And this is produced every year right around Christmas. So you'll usually see it come out around the end of December. And this was our last almanac here, the 2020 almanac. But the way the almanac is set up is that if you scroll down through the document, you'll find for each institution, each public 2 and 4 year institution, basically a 2-page spread. This prints nicely as a front and back handout. And the idea is that you can print this handout front and back and share it with people who want to learn more about your institution for whatever reason. If you're talking about the programs you offer, even just something as simple as your location or your faculty to student ratio, those kinds of data points, we have those here listed for you on the first page of the spread. And the second page really goes into lots of data points that we think people in the sort of the general population might be interested in learning more about. Everything from enrollment trends at your institution, profiles of your freshman class, your undergraduate class, student success metrics like fall to fall retention, fall to spring retention, and so forth, and graduation rates. So the percentage of students who graduate within 4 or 6 years of entry. And also some of those same metrics broken down by demographic characteristics, such as minority students, adults, and so forth. We also include completion metrics, so the number of students in an institution who are earning a degree. And profiles of the graduating classes and some other financials and things like that for the institution. So again, it's designed to be a single page or single sheet handout, print it front and back, carry that around with you, and you can share the story of your institution with that one pager. It's a great resource. Again, we just rolled this out about 2 years ago. So we're always open to suggestions on ways we can improve this. We did solicit a lot of feedback from the institutions on data elements to include. We couldn't include everything. When the graphic designers first came back to us with the design for this, we told them it had to be 2 pages, and the first design was 6 pages long, and we said we can't do that. So a lot of work went into sort of whittling this down and compressing it into something that we thought would be a useful 2-pager. So I would encourage you to check out the Higher Education Almanac when you have a chance. I won't go through all of these, but other documents of interest to you might be the Financial Aid Comprehensive Report, which shows you a little bit of data on the state's financial aid programs, primarily Promise, higher education grant, soon the West Virginia Invest grant, and a few others. And you can just get a sense of how much money is awarded to each institution in each of those programs, the number of students who receive money in those programs, and so forth. And other reports here, the health sciences report and the enrollment report that might be of interest to you. But again, the big thing I wanted to focus on today was a few highlights from our Explorer interactive data portal. If you follow along with sort of the order of things here, the data portal kind of takes you on a progression. It starts off with, and I'll show you a few of these more specifically here in just a minute, but it starts off with county profiles. And I'll talk more about that, but the county profiles are another set of single page sheets that you can print for your county. So similar to what we produced for the almanac for institutions, we have something like that for your county that talks about the biggest employers in the county and other specific data related to your county. Again, I'll show you here in a minute. And you follow along education pathways, or the pathways students take from high school to their highest degree earned. The high school opinion survey we'll spend a few minutes talking about here shortly. This is a survey we typically administer every year or two to all high school seniors whose schools are interested in participating. The last one was supposed to be administered about a year and a half ago, then COVID hit, and that obviously got derailed. So we're going to kick back off with the high school opinion survey this year. College going rate is another one that's of interest to you, and FAFSA completion. And I think for those of you who really want to make good use of data and operationalize it to improve or increase the number of students who are pursuing a post-secondary education and look for ways to help students navigate the college going process, those first few dashboards are the ones that are going to be of greatest interest to you. The others, however, do provide some interesting data if you're interested in learning more about a specific institution or the system as a whole, and that's data on all the financial aid programs, who's getting what money and where is it going, enrollment trends. For a single institution, you can look at where their students are coming from, what's their draw. There's actually an interactive map on there that'll let you pick an institution, and it'll highlight the counties, the states, or the countries from which those students at that institution were recruited. Student success looks at retention and graduation rates. Then degree production is what it sounds like. It's the number of degrees produced in various fields. You can really drill down to some specific detail on those. Workforce outcomes is also another interesting one that we'll talk about here in just a moment. It helps you, really helps you tell a story about the value of college education. And then more of interest to some of our higher ed friends would be the last two, the degree inventory and our human resources dashboard, which dive into the degree inventory dives into all the degrees that are available in our inventory at all of our institutions, and the human resources tab is really more of salary data and those types of things. But let me start back up at the beginning and just quickly hop through a couple of these and give you a quick glimpse of a few of these. And again, the first one is our county profile sheet. Don't be fooled by the years at the top. These are sort of cohort years. Our data always lags a bit, so the years aren't necessarily going to match up to where we are right now. I think this was last updated a year or two back. So we try to keep these as current as we can. But on this sheet, what you'll see if I scroll down a bit, and by the way, this prints nicely on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and there are printing instructions on the tab at the top. But you'll kind of learn more about our statewide attainment goal, which is West Virginia's climb. We know that in order to maintain an adequate workforce in West Virginia, we need to have at least 60% of our working age population with a high quality post-secondary credential. And we're not doing too well right now. We're not even halfway there yet, depending on which data point you look at. So we can look at things like our statewide attainment rate, percentage of students who were considered college ready. Only 7 out of 10 students were considered college ready when they entered a post-secondary institution, and other interesting data points like the college going rate. I'll spend more time talking about that in a minute, so we won't focus on it just yet, along with some other useful information that you might make use of as you're trying to encourage more students to enroll in post-secondary education. The FAFSA completion rate's another important one. We have a whole dashboard on that one as well. But again, I would encourage you to take a look at this county fact sheet. You can filter this by county at the top. So right now it's on the state fact sheet, but if I choose a county, it sometimes takes it a moment, but it should refresh and then provide data for that specific county. So there you go. So you can pick any county on the list and then export that and print it on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. The Education Pathways Dashboard is one of our newer ones. We rolled this out, I think, 1.5 to 2 years ago. And I found this one to be interesting. So this gives you sort of a 30,000-foot view of the paths students take from their 10th grade year of high school through whatever their highest degree earned is, if we have a record of them. So you can kind of follow these groups of students through from 10th grade all the way to the right-hand side of the screen, which is the highest known credential. So if you look on the left-hand side, in this case, we're starting with about 19,900 students. And at the first sort of split or break point here, 82% of those those 10th graders earned a high school diploma. Now, that's a regular high school diploma. There are certain things we obviously can't account for, and it's important to recognize that with any data point, that just because a student's in the green doesn't mean they didn't earn a high school diploma. It could be that they went to a private school that doesn't participate in our P20 data system. Maybe they were in 10th grade at a public school and then moved to a private school, or they could have moved to homeschool or moved out of state. So this isn't equivalent to a high school's actual graduation rate, but it gives you a good sense of the paths students are taking. So you kind of, again, step back and look at it from the 30,000-foot view. Don't try to equate this to the actual graduation rate that's published by the Department of Education. The numbers are different for good reasons. And you can read in the methodology tab why some of those differences are there. But again, you can follow these students through. So of that 19,900, 42% pursued a 4-year degree. Of that 19,000, 32% after they started in higher education continued, and 24% ultimately earned a bachelor's degree. What I find most interesting, and where you can really play around here and find some interesting data, and oftentimes data you would expect, is with the filters at the top. Like, for example, compare students, sort of the general population, to students who are identified as low SES. You can see students who were low SES only achieved a bachelor's degree rate of 10%. So about 850 of those 8,000 students who were low SES achieved a bachelor's degree, compared to students who were not considered low SES, and you see a big disparity there. And that's a disparity we've got to address. And you can do the same thing for students who were special education, students who were identified as proficient in reading or math in the 11th grade, race and gender and other identifiers there. Students who took college level courses while in high school. Again, you play around with all those filters. There's a lot of interesting data here to play around with. And that's the state dashboard. You could also look at a dashboard by school district. So similar data. We don't have as many filters, only because we run into student privacy issues if we allow you to drill down too much, especially in some of the smaller counties. If you were able to filter by race and ethnicity and gender, for example, in some of our smaller counties, you could actually potentially identify an individual student that way. So not as many options for filtering here, but you can at least drill down to your individual counties and play around a bit. The high school opinion survey is the one I mentioned a few minutes ago, is one that we're going to kick back off this year. The last one we were able to administer was the class of 2017. And again, we were gearing up to administer another one, and then COVID hit, and that sort of derailed the whole thing. But our hope here is for any of you who may be in the K-12 system. I see a few of you there as I look through the names in the chat box and the titles you posted for me. Thank you for that. Our goal here is that for any school that participates in the high school opinion survey, that we can receive your results. It's an online survey, and if your school completes, I think we have a completion rate of greater than about 50% of your high school seniors, we can then publish your data to the dashboard. But the goal would be to have the data published within a couple of weeks of the time students actually take your survey, so you could actually have your staff log into the dashboard and see results from your school within a couple of weeks of the time the survey is administered. But what the high school opinion survey does is take a look at these things that you see kind of bulleted here. I don't know if you can see this on your screen or not, but if not, I'll read a few of them. But basically, it's a way to survey high school students to measure their perceptions of how well prepared they were for college at the end of high school, factors that influence their decisions to attend or not attend college, their college plans, if they have any, their perceptions of how affordable college is. We often find that students vastly overestimate or vastly underestimate the cost of college. Is generally vastly overestimating it. They think it's way more expensive than it really is. And again, their thoughts on how they're going to pay for college and what their plans are for living and working in West Virginia after college. We're always looking for new ways to improve the high school opinion survey to collect data that's useful to our friends in K-12 and also our friends in higher education. So again, any ideas on how we might improve that, or questions you'd like to see us ask of students, we're always willing to listen to those. So on this dashboard, you can, I'll just take a moment here to demonstrate. You can kind of drill through and see what schools participated that year on a map, get an overall snapshot of the population that completed the survey, and then go through each of those areas I mentioned there as our sort of our main topics for the survey. For example, how prepared did students feel like they were after high school for college and so forth. So again, I would encourage you to kind of click through those and see what you can glean from those dashboards. A lot of useful information there. And by us making it possible to turn the data around so quickly, I think it becomes even more useful to those of you, especially in K-12, because you could administer a survey, look at the results, and then plan an intervention. If you have a large group of students who are concerned about affordability, then it may be that you offer a quick little workshop on some of the financial aid programs that are available, or help the students fill out a FAFSA if they haven't done so already. So there are things you can actually do with the data if we're able to turn those surveys around for you quickly. Another one you can do something about is the college going rate. West Virginia's college going rate has been on the decline for a number of years. And if I scroll down to this chart, you'll see that in 2010, our college going rate, our traditional college going rate was about 55.7%. And we're down to about 48.2% right now. And obviously, that's a problem. It's the first time in recorded history that we've dropped below 50%. So our goal is, and I apologize, I don't know exactly why the numbers are not matching up with the graph right now. We'll have to take a look at that. I think there's a little glitch on my dashboard here. But you can go back and look at previous high school graduation years at specific data. You can look at college going rates by geography. In other words, college going rates by county. You can see the counties with the highest and the lowest college going rates. Why is this important? Because if you're in a county or a high school, or especially a high school in a small county, you can really make a big impact on your college going rate by just encouraging a few more students to enroll in college. It doesn't take much in a small county to see a big shift in the percentage. So you could take your county from next to last in college going rate to near the top by just encouraging a small handful of students to enroll in college the following year. There's a lot you can do. Elizabeth, oh, is that question for me, Elizabeth? Oh, that's for somebody else. I'm sorry. Which browser are you using? I assume that's for somebody who's having trouble. Let's see. Again, lots of information you can glean here from this. You can also look at college going rates by individual county and high school. So that information is all there for you, along with college going rates trends over time. But again, college going rate is something you can really do a lot with. You can intervene this year and see that number increase next year. And again, in a small county in particular, or a small high school, you can really see that number increase. Another way that we're trying to help you with that between this year or next year is that we're producing a document, and I'm going to show you a document very briefly that has completely fake numbers on it. It's a draft that I truly was just editing as this meeting was starting. So ignore all the numbers; they're completely fake. But I just want to kind of show you what we're working on. And this is going to be our next 2-pager, and this is going to be our college going rate snapshot for our individual high schools. So all the high schools and county school systems and higher education institutions will be receiving a link here in the next few weeks to a PDF booklet that will have a sheet like this for every high school in the state. And what it's going to show is your college going rate for your county, for your individual high school, and compare that to the state as a whole. But it's also going to give you some other helpful information. And the big one for me is a goal. For example, if you want to increase your college going rate at your school by 10 percentage points, it's going to tell you here how many additional students you could help navigate the college going process and enroll in college to increase that number by 10 percentage points. So the idea is that you take these numbers and then turn them into action. So the sheet will also give you some action steps. It's also going to give you some useful information you could share with students. For example, some wage data. And I'll show you some of the wage data on one of our dashboards here in a minute, but it's going to show you using real West Virginia data that college pays, that students who pursue some sort of education after high school generally make more money, and as their degree level gets higher, they generally make more money. And that's a powerful story to tell to people. So this 2-pager will share, again, just a few highlights of college going rate data, along with some information that you'll find helpful as you're trying to encourage students to complete a FAFSA or to complete a college application, or look for ways to involve members of your community in this conversation, and to encourage them to help more people navigate that process. And again, we welcome feedback, as this will be the first time we've rolled out a document like this. We're looking forward to hearing what you have to say about it. FAFSA completion is another one. I'm not going to click on that dashboard yet, just to move us along, as we're almost out of time. But the FAFSA completion dashboard shows you the same kind of thing as the college going rate dashboard, but it's FAFSA completion rates. We know that if students complete a FAFSA, they're far more likely to enroll in college. And one of the big reasons for that is that they all of a sudden discover that there was a lot of financial aid available to them they didn't know was there. And the college really was more affordable than they thought it was. There's a bit of sticker shock with college, because we all know that college pricing can be complicated and confusing for students. You see the big number for tuition, and then all the additional fees that are added on, and then living expenses and books and all those things that contribute to the total cost of attendance. But when students complete a FAFSA, they finally discover, hey, wait a minute, most of that's covered for me already, especially at the community college level, where you have programs like West Virginia Invests, that will cover nearly all of basic tuition and fees for a number of programs that are in high demand. The last one I'll mention very quickly in the interest of time is one here toward the bottom called workforce outcomes. And again, I think this is one that if you're really trying to convince students in high school to pursue a post-secondary education, this tells a powerful story. It also tells a powerful story to your lawmakers and others who sometimes tend to question the value of a college degree. So what this chart shows you on the first tab is earnings after students have completed whatever their highest credential is. And the highest credentials are listed here at the top, from a high school diploma through an associate bachelor's degree all the way through a doctoral degree. The 3 different colors you're seeing are their median wages for actual West Virginia graduates 2, 4, and 6 years after graduation, or after they earned this credential. So if you just take a look at only the beige colored bars for a minute, you're going to notice that for 2 years after graduation, you can see wages steadily increasing for the most part right across the board at nearly every degree level, but for doctor's degree professional practice. Interesting reason for that is that in this case, when doctor's degree professional practice would be like medical students who are in like a medical degree, and most of those students are probably in residency programs 2 years after graduation, but you can see their wages jump quite a bit 6 years after. So again, you can do the same thing with 4 years and 6 years after graduation, and just follow along and see that, hey, the more education you get, the more money you're likely to make. Now, anecdotally, we can find individual jobs at the associate degree level that pay more than a job at the master's degree level, but we can do that with any data point. We can find anecdotes that kind of are kind of counter to what the data as a whole and aggregate are showing. But again, this tells a story. Education pays, and I think that's a powerful story for students. And the other piece of that is, as students are thinking about what they want in life, what car do you want to drive, how big of a house do you want, it's important for them to recognize that that all those things cost money, and you need a certain amount of money to make all those things happen. So where do I need to be in life in terms of at least the level of my credential to have the things I want to have? Other interesting tidbits on this dashboard before I wrap up very quickly: percentage of students at each degree level who graduate and then remain in West Virginia, and also lastly, the most popular degrees by year and the earnings for those degrees. That's, I think, all the time we have for today. And I know it's been a long day for you all. I thank you for listening. I hope you found this a little bit interesting here at the end of the day. And I would encourage you again to reach out to me. I'll put my email address in the chat box. Please do consider reaching out if you have thoughts on additional dashboards you'd like to see included in future publications, or additional data elements you'd like to see in future publications. So with that, Elizabeth, I will turn that back over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Treadway. As far as questions coming in the chat, the only one that we received was Janet had asked about the slides being shared or the presentations being shared with the institutions. And I'm certain that that's something that can be done, but we'll also make the presentation recordings available on cfwv.com after the conference. So feel free to reach out if you're unable to locate those, and we'll direct you. But we want to thank you for your time today, Dr. Treadway, and lending your expertise and sharing with the attendees. I do want to thank everyone for joining us for the burst session. We look forward to joining you back here tomorrow morning for day 2 of the Student Success Summit. We hope that everyone has a great afternoon and hope to see you early in the morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thanks, everybody.